Welcome to another story and another video in my One Company, One Story series. This time Beyond Meat, BYND. Okay, here comes the amateur legalese. I began investing in companies and their stocks in the late 70s, but I'm not a certified investment professional. My style and history of investing is described in Dream, Invest, Live. I actually have the link this time. Ta-da! A book I wrote by request, which came out as the Great Recession and the Second Great Depression began. Somewhat bad timing. My personal finance blog is trimbethcreative.net. It's about my finances, so I can talk about those because I am not an investment professional. This is not personal advice or financial advice, but I can talk about my personal finances. Anyway, Beyond Meat. There we go. Beyond Meat seems like a natural response to a natural issue. We like meat as humans. Not all of us, but of course, billions of us. Unfortunately, raising animals for meat has ethical issues for some, climate issues for some, and issues around land and water and runoff issues for others. In other words, lately, having meat has been in the news. Solution: make food that tastes the same or close enough without using any animals. Uh, they've created food that is an analog to meat. Make it tasty enough, affordable enough, and available enough, and the market may be bigger than for some and for others. We or they have the technology, and look at what they're producing, and it's, well, I wouldn't know to say that it was plant based. For a while, I noticed talk about replicating steaks and recognizable pieces of animal muscle, but for many meals, it's just ground meat. It's a burger or a sausage or a pepperoni or something like that, and that's a large market. And they seem to also be doing reasonable facsimiles for, well, steak and things like that, especially in smaller pieces and whatnot, chicken and whatnot. Those are where they started. Well, companies start small, so they were necessarily very small at the start, and they've been working at it since about 2009. But the company may start small. The industry they're up against is big enough and entrenched in thousands of years of culture. David and Goliath, nothing doesn't compare. Another way of looking at that takes advantage of that. If we need alternatives to such an enormous industry that has such an enormous impact, start a business in an alternative, and that can have enormous rewards, potentially. So, like I said, the company was started in 2009. Let me just bring up their list of products rather than their that flashy graphic was just getting to my eyeballs. Pardon me. But there's their list of products, which is an impressive list. So they started off with this great amount of hype and this great sort of introductions and things like that, because again, folks are wondering what was going to happen with all that stuff. Well, the early potential met with some untasty realities, which of course is going to happen, especially with something as subjective as taste. But they continue to learn and improve, and they have several manufacturing facilities and joint ventures with companies like McDonald's and KFC. So what could go wrong? Well, the pandemic. That happened. The details of their hope for recovery are hopefully dealing with a temporary situation. Let's look at that stock price, what happened to it. Because, again, the stock price ends up being a great analogy or a great proxy for how the company's doing. But in the nature of American investment, they keep making more and more money until just recently, in which case they started losing a lot of money. But even before then, the stock had great hype, went up over 200, and then came back down, and then went down to about 50, and now it's down to 10.47. Well, hope for recoveries are optimisms. The investment community hasn't shared that optimism, but an optimist can see an opportunity to buy. A pessimist could see an example of expectations of bad news. Everyone's guessing. If investing was rigorously logical and mathematical, there'd be no risk and less of a chance of a reward. pending some phenomenal economic restructuring. I tend to buy some of their products eventually, but I'm in the fortunate position of living on a rural island. So I've got a local rancher who raises cattle, pigs, lamb, chicken, and they sell their meat in their own store and in the local markets. I like what they do, and I like supporting local agriculture. But then I think of the hundreds of millions of meat eaters who have no such connection, who are already buying highly processed food. Processing plants instead of processing animals can make a lot of profitable sense. I hope they survive. It seems like such a logical uh, approach to, there's, give me that list again. Ground beef, sausage, burgers, chicken, jerky, meatballs. Sure, those aren't T-bones. I mean, it does say steak, but I I'll probably still go by steak. But still, with all these other things, why not just take advantage of the fact that you could be working with something that impacts the planet less and is just as good and provides a great opportunity. So I don't know if their problems are more systemic than that. I'll be interested in researching. Like I say, I hope they'll survive and thrive, but I'll also be watching because, again, the optimist says this is a great time to turn around, and the pessimist says, yeah, but they may not. And I don't know because I'm not an investment professional. This is just my point of view on one company, one story, in this case, Beyond Meat Incorporated. And my name's Tom Trimbath, the author of Dream Invest Live. Thanks for watching the video. I appreciate your attendance.